This video will present topics of murder, violence, and death. It is thus unsuitable for all audience. Viewer discretion is advised.
Saint Francis de Sales, born in 1567 and passed away in 1622, was a Roman Catholic bishop, writer, spiritual director, and doctor of the Church. He is celebrated for his profound spirituality, devotion to pastoral care, and writings that continue to inspire Christians worldwide. Here's a brief biography of his life. Francis de Sales was born on August 21st, 1567, at Château de Sales in the Duchy of Savoie, modern-day Touraine-Glières in France. He was the eldest of François de Boissy and Françoise de Sirnaz, a noble family. His parents ensured he received an exceptional education, grooming him for a career in law or government. From an early age, Francis exhibited deep piety and intellectual curiosity. He attended the University of Paris at the Collège de Clermont, a Jesuit institution where he studied humanities, philosophy, and theology. Despite his father's ambitions for him to pursue law, Francis secretly nurtured a calling to priesthood. He later went on to study law at University of Padua, earning a doctorate in law in 1591. During his time in Padua, he also immersed himself in theological studies and developed a profound understanding of Thomistic and patristic theology. His education gave him a well-rounded intellectual foundation, which he later applied to his ministry and writings. Although his family initially opposed his desire to enter the priesthood, Francis eventually persuaded his father to allow him to do so. He was ordained a priest in 1593 and appointed provost of the Diocese of Geneva, headquartered in Annecy, due to the Calvinist dominance in Geneva. Despite Calvinist oppositions, Francis undertook his pastoral duties with zeal and a remarkable ability to reconcile different religious perspectives. One of Francis de Sales' most notable early achievements was his mission to the Chablais region, a stronghold of Calvinism. Sent there in 1594, he faced hostility and indifference. Undeterred, Francis displayed patience, compassion, and eloquence, engaging in public debates and distributing leaflets explaining Catholic doctrine. His humility and gentle approach won over many. Within 4 years, over 70,000 Calvinists returned to the Catholic Church. This work earned him a reputation as a skilled and compassionate missionary. In 1602, Francis was consecrated Bishop of Geneva, succeeding his predecessor Claude de Granier. Though Geneva itself remained a Calvinist city, Francis focused on revitalizing the diocese. He emphasized clerical education, founded seminaries, and prioritized the spiritual needs of his people. His personal holiness and tirelessness, dedication, made him a beloved figure, both among Catholics and Protestants. Francis de Sales is best known for his spiritual writings, which reflect his profound understanding of human nature and his emphasis on love, gentleness, and the universal call to holiness. Among his most famous works, it includes Introduction to the Devout Life, published in 1609, This is a guide for lay people seeking to live a holy life in the midst of worldly responsibilities. The book offers practical advice on prayers, virtues, and overcoming temptations, written in a clear and accessible style. There's also a treatise on the love of God, published in 1616. It is a more theological and reflective work, exploring the nature of divine love and how humans can grow in their love for God. Finally, there's Letters of Spiritual Direction. This is a collection of letters to individuals seeking guidance, showcasing his ability to address unique spiritual needs with sensitivity and insight. Francis's writings emphasize the importance of ordinary, everyday holiness, advocating for a balanced and joyful approach to life. His teachings remain relevant to people of all vocations and states of life. In 1604, Francis met Jeanne France de Chantal, a widow seeking spiritual guidance. Their friendship led to the founding of the Order of the Vision of Holy Mary in 1610. This religious congregation focused on simplicity, humility, and the active and contemplative life, offering women an alternative to the strict cloistered life of other orders. The Visitation Order became one of the enduring legacies of St. Francis. In his later years, Francis's health declined due to his rigorous schedule and ascetic lifestyle. Despite this, he continued to preach, write, and guide souls until his death on December 28, 1622, in Lyon, France. His body was interred in Annecy, where it became a pilgrimage site. Francis was canonized by Pope Alexander VII in 1655 and declared a Doctor of the Church by Pope Pius IX in 1877. In 1923, Pope Pius XI proclaimed him the patron saint of writers, journalists, and the Catholic press, in recognition of his influential writings and efforts to use the printed word for evangelization. Francis de Sales' spirituality is characterized by his emphasis on God's love and mercy, the importance of humility, and the call to holiness in everyday life. He championed the idea that sanctity is attainable by all, regardless of vocation or state of life. His approach to spirituality was marked by his gentleness, as he believed that a spoonful of honey attracts more flies than a barrel of vinegar. His teachings have had lasting impact on Catholic thought and practice. His works are widely regarded as a legacy and continues to be used through the Visitation Order, which he co-founded, and numerous institutions and communities that bear his name. St. Francis de Sales' feast day is celebrated every year on January 24th, and he remains a model for pastoral care, intellectual rigor, and spiritual guidance for Catholics and others worldwide. The iconography of St. Francis de Sales is rich and symbolic, reflecting his life, teachings, and sanctity. His representations in religious art are often include descriptive attributes, gestures, and settings that convey his identity and spiritual legacy. Here is a brief, detailed, and exhaustive description of his iconography. St. Francis de Sales is typically portrayed as a middle-aged man with a gentle and kind expression, emphasizing his pastoral compassion and humility. His slightly balding head, short beard, and serene demeanor convey wisdom, maturity, and a fatherly presence. He's usually showed wearing a bishop's attire. As a bishop, he is often shown wearing episcopal robes, including a cassock, rochet, and mozzetta. A mitre or crozier may accompany him to signify his role as the Bishop of Geneva. To emphasize his humility, some depictions show him with simple clerical clothing without elaborate adornments, reflecting his focus on service rather than status. The color purple symbolizes penance and authority is frequently associated with him, aligning with his role as a shepherd of souls. Saint Francis de Sales is often also depicted holding a quill and paper, symbolizing his identity as a writer and his contributions to spiritual literature. Books are often shown, including copies of his work like Introduction to the Devout Life or Treatise on the Love of God, appear nearby him or in his hands. A flaming heart pierced with arrows or surrounded by rays of light represent his teaching on divine love, particularly his emphasis on the love of God as central to Christian life. Sometimes the heart is inscribed with the words Live Jesus, in Latin Vive Jésus, his personal motto and a recurring theme in his writings. Also shown is the crozier. A symbol of episcopal authority, underscores his role as shepherd of the faithful. A skull or hourglass may also be shown in his iconography. These memento mori elements symbolize the transient nature of life and his reflections on mortality and spiritual priorities. A dove resting on his shoulder or near his ear represents the Holy Spirit, alluding to the divine inspiration behind his writings and teachings is often shown in the iconography. Many flowers might also be shown in this iconography as well, including lilies, which represent his purity and devotion to chastity, is some of those flowers, as well as roses, which signify his love for God and humanity, as well as his gentle, compassionate approach to spirituality. Saint Francis de Sales is often shown preaching, writing, teaching, or conversing, in the iconography. When it comes to the preaching, he is often shown standing or gesturing as if in the act of preaching, reflecting his missionary zeal and tireless efforts to convert and inspire the faithful. To demonstrate his writing, depictions of him seated at a desk writing highlighted his role as a spiritual author. Scenes of him guiding or interacting with others underscore his gift for spiritual direction and pastoral care to demonstrate his teaching or conversion role in his iconography. To give context and setting to his iconography, many will include countrysides or mountains, which represent his missionary work in the Kables region, which involved traversing mountainous terrain to preach and convert Calvinists. He may also be shown in a study or writing desk nearby or seated at This is a scholarly setting which emphasizes his intellectual contributions and devotion to the written word. Sorry. There also may be scenes with the Visitation Order. He is sometimes shown alongside Saint Jane, France de Chantal, or the Sisters of the Visitation Order, which highlights his role as one of the founding members of the congregation. He may be also shown near a pulpit. A pulpit setting underscores his eloquence and dedication to spreading the gospel through preaching. Many of the iconography might also include settings of group depictions. For instance, he may be shown with Saint Jean, France de Chantal. They are indeed shown depicted together quite often, symbolizing their spiritual collaboration and shared mission who founded the Order of the Visitation. Saint Francis may also be shown with angels, which often appear in his iconography, either carrying symbols like books or hearts, or surrounding him in scenes of divine inspiration. As mentioned earlier, he also may be shown with the Sacred Heart. In later depictions, he is shown venerating the Sacred Heart of Jesus, reflecting his devotion to this aspect of Christ's love. There are, of course, many unique artistic interpretations, one of which is the miracle depictions. Some artworks depict specific moments from his life, such as converting Calvinists or performing miracles of healing, underscoring his sanctity and missionary success. Either iconography might show him receiving divine inspiration. In these paintings, he is shown receiving divine light or guidance, symbolized by rays of light or a descending dove. Over the years, there have been, of course, many variations by artistic traditions. In Baroque art, depictions of Saint Francis de Sales often emphasize dramatic lighting, rich color, and emotional expressions, highlighting his spiritual fervor and missionary zeal. In folk art, simpler depictions are shown as the art focuses on his pastoral care, often showing him in plain clerical attire with minimal embellishments. As for modern interpretation, contemporary art may depict him in abstract or symbolic forms, focusing on his spiritual legacy rather than literal representations. Through his iconography, St. Francis de Sales is consistently portrayed as a model of pastoral care, intellectual brilliance, and profound love for God and humility, with each detail contributing to a richer understanding of his life and mission. Saint Francis de Sales, though not widely known for extraordinary miraculous deeds, in the way some saints are, performed a variety of miracles during his life that testify to his sanctity, compassion, and profound faith. These miracles, both during his life and after his death, range from physical healings to spiritual interventions and attest to his closeness to God. Here's a brief and detailed description of his miracles. Francis was known for his ability to bring physical healing through prayer and blessings. One example is a dying woman who was restored to life. While ministering to the sick, Francis was called to the beside of a woman thought to be near death. After his prayer and blessing, she regained her health and lived for many more years. Another example is healing a crippled child. On one occasion, a mother brought her paralyzed child to him, begging for his intercession. Francis prayed fervently, and the child regained the use of his limbs, much to the amazement of the witnesses. Francis also performed exorcisms to free individuals from demonic possession. One example is the deliverance of a possessed woman. While preaching in the Chablais region, he encountered a woman tormented by what is believed to be a demonic possession. After prolonged prayer and the administration of these sacraments, she was delivered from her affliction. Another example is driving out demons from a Calvinist home. During his missionary efforts, Francis was asked to bless a house that his inhabitants claimed was plagued by a diabolical activity. His blessing and prayers brought immediate peace, and the family converted to Catholicism as a result. Francis also restored speech to individuals who were mute or suffering from some kind of speech impediments. For example, a mute boy was cured. While visiting a village, a mute boy was brought to St. Francis. After praying over the child, Francis blessed him, and the boy immediately began to speak for the first time. Francis also experienced the divine protection in dangerous situations. For example, he went through the miraculous event of survival in the Chablais Mountains. During his missionary work, Francis frequently traversed treacherous mountain paths. On one occasion, he was caught in a severe snowstorm. Lost and in peril, he prayed for divine assistance. Miraculously, he found his way to safety, guided by an inexplicable light. He also had escaped from an assassination attempt. Francis faced hostility by the Calvinists during his Chablais mission. Once an armed man attempted to ambush him, but the weapon inexplicably failed, and the assailant fled in fear. While serving the poor, Francis also witnessed the miraculous multiplication of food. For example, he had provision for the hungry, but during a famine in his diocese, Francis personally distributed food to the poor. On this occasion, despite having a small amount of bread and grain, the provisions lasted far longer than expected, feeding an unexpectedly large crowd. Francis' gentle and persuasive approach often had miraculous results as well in bringing people back to the Catholic faith. One example was the mass conversion in Chablais. His missionary work with the Calvinist stronghold of Chablais led to the conversion of over 70,000 individuals. Witnesses attributed this extraordinary success not only to his success in eloquence, but also divine intervention. A specific example was the conversion of a hardened Calvinist. A prominent Calvinist leader publicly challenged Francis's teachings. After a lengthy debate, the man not only admitted defeat but converted to Catholicism, citing an inexplicable feeling of divine truth radiating from St. Francis. There are, of course, many posthumous miracles. One such example was the divine miracle of incorrupt body. When his body was exhumed several years after his passing, it was found to be incorrupt, a phenomenon considered as a miraculous sign of sanctity. This event greatly reinforced his reputation for holiness and drew pilgrims to his tomb in Annecy. There were, of course, as well numerous miraculous healings which were reported by those who visited his tomb. For example, a blind woman who had been blind for many years visited his shrine praying fervently for his intercession. Upon touching the relics, her sight was restored. Another example was a healing of a crippled man who had been suffering from paralysis. He prayed at Francis's tomb and was miraculously able to walk again. A woman on the verge of death from an incurable disease was carried to his tomb. After praying and being anointed with oil from a lamp burning near his relics, she recovered fully. It is believed that the relics as well of Saint Francis de Sales became associated with numerous miracles. A woman suffering from chronic ailments was given a piece of his cassock. Upon touching it, she was cured instantly. While in a home that was caught on by a devastated fire, but the owner, having a relic of Francis, placed it at the entrance. The flames inexplicably stopped, sparing the home. There have been, of course, many examples of intercessory miracles. One such example is the sailors that were caught in a violent storm invoked his intercession. Witnesses reported that the storm abated immediately after his name was called upon. Another example was a family prayed for his intercession when their child fell into a well. The child was rescued unharmed, though he had been submerged for an impossible length of time. During an outbreak of a plague in the region near Annecy, people turned to St. Francis for help. Accounts described entire families being healed and after invoking his intercession and wearing medals blessed in his name. Some lesser known miracles include the miracle of bees. As a child, Francis's candle was reportedly surrounded by bees that hovered around him without stinging, symbolizing his future eloquence and sweetness in speech. Another example is prevention of flooding. During his episcopate, Francis prayed during a time of heavy rains that threatened to flood a village. The waters miraculously receded, sparing the community. After his passing, he was reportedly appeared to individuals in visions, providing comfort, guidance, or healing. In conclusion, the miracles attributed to Saint Francis de Sales are varied as his ministry, reflecting his role as healer, protector, and intercessor, both during his lifetime and after his passing. These miraculous events continue to inspire devotions, emphasizing his profound faith, pastoral care, close relationship to God. The canonization process of St. Francis de Sales was meticulous, reflecting his profound influence on the Catholic Church and his enduring legacy of holiness. Here's a brief but detailed description of the process. St. Francis de Sales passed away on December 28, 1622 in Lyon, France. His reputation for sanctity was immediately recognized and widespread. His body was taken to Annecy, where he served as Bishop of Geneva and buried in the Church of the Visitation, which he was a co-founder with Saint Jeanne France de Chantal. Pilgrims immediately began visiting his tomb, attributing miraculous healings to him and conversions to his intercession. In 1627, 5 years after his passing, Francois de Sales' followers and admirers began promoting the idea of his canonization, noting his virtuous life, writings, and miracles. In 1628, under the guidance of Bishop Charles Auguste de Sales, Francis's nephew and successor as Bishop of Geneva, initial inquiries were made into his life and virtues. Bishop Charles Auguste was instrumental in advocating for the cause, ensuring records of St. Francis's work and testimonies were preserved. In 1629, the process formally began in Annecy, where ecclesiastical authorities opened an investigation into his life, writings, and the miracles attributed to him. Eyewitnesses, including many who knew Francis personally, provided their testimonies. In 1631, the diocesan investigation concluded, and the findings were sent to Rome for review by the Sacred Congregation of Rites, now called the Dicastery of the Causes for Saints. In 1634, Pope Urban VIII, who reigned from 1623 to 1644, examined the documents and approved further investigations. During this time, scrutiny focused on his writings, ensuring they aligned with Catholic doctrine. Francis's seminal works included Introduction to the Devout Life and Treatise of the Love of God, were declared free from error and praised for their theological depth and accessibility. In 1649, a key miracle attributed to St. Francis's intercession was officially recognized: the healing of a woman in Annecy who had been blind for years. Her sight was restored after she prayed at his tomb and touched his relics. On April 28, 1661, the Pope Alexander VII beatified Francis de Sales in Rome. This formal declaration recognized him as blessed and allowed public venerations in certain regions. Following his beatification, additional miracles were investigated to determine whether Francis met the criteria for sainthood. The Sacred Congregation of Rites examined testimonies and documentation from Annecy. Among the miracles were considered the healing of a man in Lyon who had been paralyzed was cured after invoking Francis's intercession was one of them. Another was the inexplicable survival of a young girl in Annecy who fell from a great height and suffered no injuries, which was attributed to Francis's protection. These miracles, along with his life of heroic virtue, satisfied the requirements for sainthood. On March 19, 1665, Pope Alexander VII formally canonized St. Francis de Sales in St. Peter's Basilica, Rome. The ceremony was a grand occasion, attended by many clergy, dignitaries, and representatives from Annecy and the Visitation Order. The Pope praised Francis for his exemplary life, spiritual writings, and tireless efforts to reconcile Calvinists and Catholics during his mission in the Chablais region. He was celebrated as a model of pastoral care and gentleness. On November 16, 1877, Pope Pius IX declared St. Francis de Sales a doctor of the Church, recognizing the profound theological and spiritual insights found in his writings. This elevated his status as one of the Church's foremost teachers of the faith. His works, particularly Introduction to the Devout Life and Treatise of the Love of God, were highlighted for their universality, offering guidance to lay people and clergy, as well as religious people alike. On January 24th, 1923, Pope Pius XI named St. Francis de Sales patron saint of writers, journalists, and Catholic press, honoring his innovative use of pamphlets and letters during his missions in the Chablis region. He also became the patron saint of the Visitation Order and educators. St. Francis de Sales feast day was originally celebrated on January 29th, but it was moved to January 24th, the date of his burial. Pilgrimages to this day occur to his tomb in Annecy, and his life is commemorated in churches, schools, and religious institutions worldwide. The canonization of St. Francis de Sales is a testimony to his profound impact on the Church and the world, celebrating his gentle spirituality, theological contributions, and pastoral dedication.